All right, 13.3. Today we're going to take a look at truth in lending. The basic idea of what this section is if we pay off something early, the question is how much money would we save? And that's what this section is going to try to address. It's what happens when we pay something off early. Sound good? Okay. There are two different ways to make that kind of a calculation, and we're going to look at both of them. But before we do, we're going to take a look at something called the Truth in Lending Act. So in 1968, this was passed, and it addressed two major issues directly related to what we're talking about. How can we tell the true annual interest rate that a lender is charging? Sometimes it looks like something that's not quite what it is. We want to make sure that we understand. And the second thing is how much of the finance charge are we entitled to save, that is not pay, if we pay something off sooner? Now, there are loans that if you pay it off sooner, you're entitled to save nothing. That's in the conditions of the way a loan is set up. Be aware of that. If you decide to go take loans out for something, you need to know what you've signed. It matters, okay? So it's not always the case that you're entitled to save anything, but if it's not the case, it has to be written into the conditions of the loan. Now, this table that I gave you, table 5 is what it's going to be, what we're going to call it right here, is the APR table, and it's known as the True Annual Interest Rate, and it was standardized by the Truth in Lending Act. Now, obviously, it's accurate to 0.5 decimal places, right? We talked about that already when we looked at it. So is there something that's equivalent to 6.3%? Well, of course there is, and it would be somewhere in between the 6 and the 6.5, okay? The ones that you're doing inside of MyMathLab and so forth, we're going to stick to those half percentage marks, which is close enough for the points of what we're doing, right? Okay, so we're going to talk about Ann and Andy again. They're going to continue to make some decisions, and we're going to follow along their story today. Ann and Andy from 13.2, the ones who bought the refrigerator, shortly after the refrigerator died, the dishwasher died, because that's usually the way these things go. I will tell you, we lost 2 air conditioning units in our house this summer. $8,000 to replace both of them. It was a big hit. The first one was bad enough, and then the second one, I just about took my breath away, and then my husband had an unexpected surgery. Bad things tend to happen in threes in my house anyway, too. So that was the third, and we were grateful when that one was over. So their dishwasher is our next one, okay? They again decide to finance a new dishwasher. It cost $500 with $100 down. But this loan, there's no grace period thing like they had with their refrigerator. Their loan is only 8% add-on interest for 18 months. And we're going to find the APR of the loan. And we're going to do this using the table that we've been talking about. Okay, so to start with, we're just going to find the amount that's financed. Okay, so how do we find the amount financed? Do you remember? Okay, what do you have?
You just subtract the, I think, what is it, the total with the down payment?
Right. So the amount that's financed is the price, right? The purchase price or whatever. And then we subtract the down payment. So I don't know that I ever wrote it down quite like this. So just so that we have it, I'm going to write it in this one. So how much was the purchase price of the dishwasher? $500. And what is their down payment? $100. So how much are they going to finance? $400. Okay, everybody good so far? All right, now we're ready for the add-on interest. So add-on interest is found the same way we found interest last time. Interest as a formula looked like this. Remember PRT? Okay. P is the amount of the loan that we're taking out, or the investment if we were doing an investment. Here we're looking at a loan. So the P is the $400. R is our interest rate as a decimal. What was the interest rate that we set up in this problem? 6%. So as a decimal, I've got 0.06. And time is time in years. So this one actually said the time is in months. How many months? 18. So pay attention. You've got to make sure you're using the right units. 18 months in years would be year and a half. So we've got to do 1.5 here. Okay. What will usually happen if you forget to do that is you'll get a number that doesn't make sense. And it should red flag you. So just for fun, I want somebody to find for me this, well, we're going to all find this one. So let's find this one first. What is 400 times 0.06 times 1.5? What do we get? So let's find the real number. $36. Now, somebody else, just for fun, I'd like for you to find the 400 times the 0.06 times 18. This is a common mistake, is to forget and to not change the months. What would we get if we did that?
436
$432. Would it make sense to pay $432 in interest on a $400 payment? No. Okay, so look at the answer at the end and ask yourself, does it make sense? Because that's going to help you catch mistakes that you may make. $36 is our interest. So now we're going to use this table. All right, so take a look at your table. I'm going to do mine as well. Our finance charge, H. So here's how we find it. I'm going to write the formula in first. H is the finance charge. I'm sorry, we're going to do step 4 is where we use the table. H is the finance charge divided by the amount financed, and we multiply it by $100. This is going to be our H value. So the finance charge we found in Part B, that was 36. The amount that was financed was in Part A, that's 400. So we're going to divide 36 by 400 and multiply by 100. What will that give us? Somebody's calculator give them a value? 36 divided by 400 times 100. It is 9. It's 9. This doesn't always work out to be a nice, pretty number. So don't think that that's like, it just is. This time it's 9. Okay? It's 9. So here's the way you take this table. So here's the way you use this table. So in number 4, use table 5 to locate the nearest H value in the correct row. Now, on the left-hand side, what you will see is the rows over here represent the number of monthly payments. How many monthly payments are in our scenario? 18, right? It's at 18. So we're going to go down to not row 18, but to the row that starts with 18. 18 months is how long we're taking, or Ann and Andy are taking to pay off this debt. Okay? And we're going to go along row, I'll call it row 18. We're going to go along row 18 until I find an H value that is the closest I can get to H equal 9. So within the table, on the row labeled 18, there are 2 values that surround 9. One is slightly smaller and one is bigger. And I just want to pick whichever one it is that is the closest to 9. Which one of those 2 is the closest to 9? 8.93 it is. So this one is the closest to 9. This is the closest value I have for H, my H. Everybody agree? And if you go then to the top of the column, that's your APR. I don't think red was a good choice here. Let's kind of change it. It's a really strange looking color here. That's better. All right. The APR is the column that we are in based on the number of months that we're paying our loan for and the H value that we had gotten by taking the financed amount divided by the finance charge divided by the financed amount times 100. It is 11%. So this gives me 11%. Note, that's the true annual interest rate. The add-on rate said it was 6%, but that's a little misleading, right? It's really 11%. 11% is the true APR. Okay. Here's another spot where we're going to have a fair bit of writing. The first spot, actually, we have a lot of writing. There's 2 ways to calculate unearned interest. We're going to look at the first one, which is called actuarial method. So for an installment loan is these loans where we're getting a loan and we're paying it back. So we're not doing credit card stuff anymore. That was back in 13.2. So these are the loans where we buy something, we pay it back. So think your car loans, appliances, jewelry, things where you buy something for a specific length of time. When we pay it off early, there's 3 quantities that we need to have, or that we need to know to be able to find this. We need to know our regular monthly payment. That's usually established when you create the loan. That makes sense. K, it's the number of payments that are scheduled after the current payment. Okay, however many are left over after you've paid today's payment. And H, which we found before, which is called our finance charge per $100. If we have those 3 quantities, we can find the unearned interest. Remember, unearned interest means the interest we don't have to pay because we paid it off early. So it's interest that the bank or whoever did not earn. That's why it's called unearned interest. And it's calculated as K times R, and then times the quantity of H divided by 100 plus H. The H that's in here is not going to be the H you expect it to be. We calculated H over here to be 9, correct? It won't be 9, although we're going to continue the question we did before, and I'll show you what I mean by that as we do. Okay? So, taking a look at Ann and Andy. One more piece, the payoff amount. I forgot. An installment loan requiring those regular monthly payments can be paid off early, provided that it's not a condition in your loan, right? Along with the current payment. If the original loan has K additional payments, that means the payments you haven't made yet in the future. Let's see. And the unearned interest is U, as we calculated in the above equation. Then disregarding any possible prepayment penalty, the payoff amount is calculated as K plus 1 times R minus U. So I'd like to make an emphasis on the part that says disregarding any possible prepayment penalty. There are loans that penalize you if you pay it off early. Did you know that? They exist. Again, that may or may not be something that you care about. It may not be enough that it matters to you, but you should be aware of it when you take out the loan, right? Read the information, know what the conditions are. Okay, so now we're going back to Ann and Andy. If you didn't quite get all these things written down, take a picture real quick now or go back and look at it later. Ann gets a new job and it comes with a signing bonus. Did you know there are jobs that come with signing bonuses? There are. One of the big places that this happened most recently probably was nursing jobs. A lot of nursing jobs started coming with sign-on bonuses. And that happened because we did see an exodus from the medical profession during COVID. Shock, right? Didn't expect that to happen. So there are other jobs that come with sign-on bonuses as well. Sometimes server positions in high-need areas will come with sign-on bonuses. So you can take a job working at the Chili's or whatever, and they'll give you a bonus for signing on. Usually the way that it works is there's a sign-on bonus after you've worked with them for a specified amount of time. You know, you've worked there for 6 months, and then they give you a bonus on top, something like that. Hers comes with a sign-on bonus, and in an effort to get her finances under control, because at this point they've got 2 loans, one for the refrigerator and one for the dishwasher, they're going to pay the dishwasher off early. They originally agreed to 18 months and have made 5 payments so far. So part A, we're going to find the unearned interest using the actuarial method. So the first thing I'd like to do is to just write down the formula that we will eventually use at the end for unearned interest, because it was on the previous 2 slides above. It's U equals K times R times H over 100 plus H. Okay, that's the formula from 2 slides back. So in order to use this formula, we have to find these quantities, right? Everything that's a letter, a variable on the right-hand side, I need to know what that number is. So I need to know what K is, what R is, and what H is. 3 things I have to find. We'll start with the easy one. We're going to start with K. Okay? Write yourself down a note as a reminder of what K represents. K represents the number of monthly payments after the one we're making. Equivalently, you could say K represents the number of monthly payments we're not going to have to make if we paid it off early. So in Ann and Andy's situation, they've already made 5. They're making another one. How many will they not have to make? Close. 12. Okay, so they paid 5. They're paying 1 right now, so they signed up for 18. The 5 that they paid plus the 1 that they're currently on makes 6. So they have 12 payments that they're not going to have to make. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, it's really, what you did, Madison, is really common. So that's why I want to make a mention of it, is that it's really easy to think that there's 13, but it's really a 12, because we're making 1, well, let's say today, okay? So we got our 12 left that we don't make. All right, R. R is our amount that we financed. It's our monthly payments. Let me say it that way. R is our monthly payment. Okay, so R is our monthly payment. Remember, we borrowed, let me go back over here. We borrowed $400. That was step one. And then we have the add-on interest of 36, right? So we're going to have to pay back $436. Everybody good with that? Okay? So over here, we have our $400 that we borrowed plus our $36 finance charge. And we're going to divide it by how many months we would have made this agreement for. So our original agreement was for 18 months, so this is 18 here. So we actually have 436 divided by 18. What is our regular monthly payment for this dishwasher? Thank you, $24.22. Okay, pretty good, so that's R. And the last thing we have to do is the one that's confusing. It's H, and I'm going to put the new value for H, and I'm going to talk to you about how it works. So we're going to flip back over to our table. And one more back. So we're going to stay in the 11% column, okay? We're going to stay in that 11% column. But we're no longer making 18 monthly payments, correct? That's what we started out as. We are saving ourselves some of that time. What was our new K value that we just found in this problem? 12. So we are going to move ourselves up in this table to the column, the row that's 12. It's the number of payments I'm not making. I'm not going to make those 12 payments. So within the column that we were already in with the 11%, what we actually are going to be using now is the 6.06. Because I've got 12 as my row, I'm still in the 11% column, my new H value is going to be 6.06. Okay? So we shift the row that we're on based on how many monthly payments we're not going to make. So our H value over here, I'll write down a few details of what I just said. It's the new H value. We found it by going to the K equal 12 in our table. In the 11% column. And this will give us 6.06, not 9. So we're ready to calculate the unearned interest. We found out K, it was 12. We found R, it was 24.22. We found H as 6.06, and then the denominator is 100 plus the 6.06. Or feel free to just write it as 106.06. And we're going to make this calculation. So we need to multiply 12 times 24.22 times 6.06 divided by 106.06. Our expected answer needs to be something less than 36. Why do I know it has to be less than 36? What was 36? Close. It was the amount for the interest, the finance charge. Yeah, 36 was the finance charge that we're paying. So whatever I'm getting better be a number between 0 and 36, right? Can't be negative. That doesn't make sense. Can't be 36. We're not going to save the entire amount of it because we have had this loan for 5 months, right? So it's going to be a number between 0 and 36. Again, think about what the expectation should be. The most interesting answers I get when I'm looking back at you guys' work to try to find things is things that are just so absurd that I feel like you should have said, it doesn't make any sense. Right? It's a red flag kind of thing. So pay attention for those red flags. What do you get when you do this multiplication and division? Do you have one, Jasmine? Oh, you don't have a calculator. Madison, Emma, Harry, Kyle, somebody with a calculator. What do you get? Thank you. It is 16.61. Is the answer reasonable? Yeah, it's between 0 and 36. So yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to save $16.61. Right? The bank is not going to earn that amount of money. So this is the unearned interest, or the amount that I, or Ann and Andy, save. Okay, so part B then is the payoff amount. So the payoff amount was another formula that we had a couple slides back. It said K plus 1 times R minus U. That was the formula we had. What was our K value? We wrote it down. 12. So this is 12 plus 1 or 13, right? What was our R value? 24.22. And what is the unearned interest value that we just found in part A? 1661. So what this is going to be is the final payment that they would have calculated at the bank, and then they said, okay, your loan is done if you pay off this amount. That's what this is. Okay, so it's going to be more than the regular payment, obviously, but it's not going to be the whole cost of the 436 either. So again, expectation, what should my answer look like? So if you make this calculation, what do you get? That's right, 298.25. And again, that makes sense, right? Smaller than 436. Okay, it's not zero, of course, right? It's not the monthly payment amount either, which was 24.22. So this is a reasonable kind of answer for us to be getting. All right, there is a second way that we can find unearned interest, and it is easier. It gives us a very nearby close value to what we had found before, so it's a good substitute method. This is called the Rule of 78, and it goes like this. For a closed-end loan, that's the ones we've been talking about, with monthly payments that are scheduled, which is paid off earlier than originally scheduled. We're going to let F be the finance charge. We were calculating that before. N is the number of payments originally scheduled. K is the number of remaining payments after the current payment. So all of these quantities don't involve the table. Okay, so there's no table when we're doing Rule of 78. And the formula is to take the number of payments that remain, that we're not going to pay, multiply that by one more, that's the payment that we're on, right? And then divide it by the number of monthly payments we originally agreed to, times one more than that, and then multiply by the finance charge. Okay? Calculation's not a difficult one, but you do need to be a little bit careful that your calculator doesn't do it in the wrong order or anything weird like that, of course. So I'm going to write this in on the next page because we're going to need it. So I have, I'll just write it here. U equals K times K plus 1 over N times N plus 1 times my finance charge. Okay, so same scenario with Ann and Andy, all the same sort of things we had before. So what was K? We've done it in a couple different pieces now. It's 12. So we've got 12 times what? 13, right? Just one more. N. What was N in our scenario? Original number of payments, which was 18. So we have 18 times one more than that in the denominator, 19. Okay? And then we're going to multiply by the finance charge. Do you remember what our finance charge was? It was step 2 of the very first problem we did on this lesson. Yep, 36. The finance charge, if you want, you can call back over here and call this F so you can reference it later. The finance charge is the same as the interest I, or the PRT. It was 36. So this is times 36 at the end. All right, so the one thing to be aware of in your calculator, just to be careful, is that it doesn't try to do 18 and then multiply the whole result by 19, right? So if you wish, you're welcome to get the 18 times 19 as the quantity before you try to do the multiplication and division. That's not the worst idea ever. It's 342. So you could multiply 12 times 13 times your 36 over 342. And there's various other kinds of ways you could write that down, but that one works pretty well. And what do you get for the product and quotient? Remember, this is still unearned interest. It's how much I don't have to pay. It needs to be a number between between 0 and 36. 16.42. That's awfully close to the last value. It was 1661, right? So the numbers are not far off from one another. 1642. Payoff amount is found exactly the same way as before. That's not any different. Our payoff is K plus 1 times the, times the, how did we label it? R, yeah, our regular monthly payment, and then minus the unearned interest. Okay? So K is still the same K we've been using all the way along. It's 12. So this is 12 plus 1. Our regular monthly payment, which we calculated a few steps back, was 24.22. And then the unearned interest with the rule of 78 is what we did on part A here, but C, sorry, I called it C, which is 1642. So what would my payoff amount be if we were calculating using the rule of 78? It's going to be close to the other payoff amount because the unearned interest was close, right?
I got $298.44.
So did I. 298.44. Wonderful. Okay, so they do not vary drastically, but they will vary enough that it's going to kick back a wrong answer if you're using one in the wrong place. So pay attention to which one you're using and where.